Hello everyone, this is the match between Psychic Mewtwo and Black Oblivion. It's just started, so as you can see, both have sent out their first Pokemon. Black Oblivion has chosen Latios and Psychic Mewtwo has chosen Greninja. Now, looking at Psychic Mewtwo's team composition, he seems like he's going for a more hyper-offensive team, whereas Black Oblivion seems to have more of a bulky offense. Or even a more of a stall-based core. So, obviously this Greninja will probably have Protein as its ability, so likely have Ice Beam to deal with this Latios, so odds are Black Oblivion would want to switch out. However, Psychic Mewtwo, he might be predicting that switch, so what he could do is go for a different move, say like Surf or Dark Pulse. Okay, so he does switch out. It goes for the U-turn, turns into a bug type, and does neutral damage to the Ferrothorn. It allows him to get a free switch out while dealing some damage to this Ferrothorn. Now that you know that Ferrothorn is out on the field, he can choose something to deal with it. Maybe his Landorus or his Mew, as Scizor, Toxapex, and Kyurem wouldn't be a good idea. So he does go for the Landorus, and gets the Intimidate off. Now, Landorus can easily just use a Earthquake to deal decent amount of damage to the Ferrothorn. Actually, looking at Psychic Mewtwo's composition, he does have a potential to run a good Volt Turn comp. This could be a very good Volt Turn composition. Okay, so Landorus does go to Substitute while the Ferrothorn uses the Spike. So free Substitute allows Landorus to potentially set up with Nasty Plot, I believe. Actually, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe this is a Nasty Plot Landorus. Now, as I was saying before, both Psychic Mewtwo does have a setup for a Volt Turn set, which usually means having Pokemon with U-Turn or Volt Switch on their team to allow for very easy and fast switches to force their opponent to constantly switch. My guess though, next turn is this Landorus is going to use Stealth Rocks in order to get rid of to help this Volturn set. However, he does go for the Swords Dance, so he's planning on going for a more offensive based set, which includes which will likely have Earthquake, Rock Slide. We know it has Substitute, we know it has Swords Dance, so odds are this Landorus is not packing Stealth Rocks. So Power Whip, as you saw just earlier, does take out the Substitute, so this Ferrothorn may have a little bit of a physical investment, but not completely sure. So as I was saying before, the whole Volt Turn. Greninja has U-Turn. Scizor also has U-Turn. Mew, I believe, can learn. I'm pretty sure can learn Volt Switch, whereas Kyurem Black also has Volt Switch, which also acts as his primary stall breaker. So another Landorus comes out, and even though Psychic Mewtwo goes for the Earthquake, since the other side's Landorus is immune to it due to it being Flying type. So very good prediction there. So this Landorus is going for his Z move and goes for Supersonic Strike, which does take out this Psychic Mewtwo's Landorus. So now Black Oblivion has this distinct advantage, but now it comes at Kyurem. Now, I'm pretty sure Kyurem is a bit slower than Landorus is, but still has that ability to deal massive damage thanks to its ice-based moves. Also, Black Oblivion's Landorus, as we saw earlier, did use the Skyrim Z to the Flyim Z to use Supersonic Sky Strike. So it is packing a special attacking move. My guess it's either Air Slash or Fly. I'm not sure about the Air Slash. It's more likely Fly at this point. Fly, as most people probably know, if you play the mainline games, it makes your Pokemon immune to one attack and deals damage again on the second part of the attack. Though it still can be hit in the air if someone uses Thunder or Rock Slide. Or Toxic, if I recall, but definitely by Poison type. So now seeing that Kira moves out on the field, Black Oblivion swap back into his Ferrothorn to take the hit. Remember, Ferrothorn is 5th Gen's Toxapex, basically. Like, it was the tankiest of walls back in the day. So now, swaps back, goes for the hidden power, and does deal a decent amount of damage to Heatran. He was probably predicting like a fire type move, maybe like hidden power fire, but even though this Kyurem did use hidden power, it dealt neutral damage to Heatran, so we know it's not hidden power fire. We know it's not hidden power water. We know it's not hidden power ground. It could be hidden power rock. We know it's also not hidden power dragon, normal, grass, bugs, and several others. So now he swaps into Toxapex, whereas Black Oblivion swaps into Clefable. Now, Toxapex, while being a poison type, doesn't really pack many offensive poison type moves. It does have Toxic, but most Toxapex do run Toxic, Scald, Protect, and Recover, I believe. So this Toxapex is just purely for stalling out time and forcing a switch from Black Oblivion, which it does. So PsychicMewtwo, knowing that Black Oblivion would go for a switch into something, decides to swap out into Scizor, which odds are runs Bullet Punch, Cross Scissor, yes, Cross Scissor, not X Scissor, Cross Scissor. Cross Scissor, Swords Dance is very possible, and maybe Feint, probably not Feint. So he does go for the Mega Evolution, goes for the U-turn. Yes, that was the other move I was thinking of, the U-turn. So he goes back and brings out Kyurem Black again to threaten Landorus. But you have to remember, the Spikes is still on the field, which will constantly do more and more damage to PsychicMewtwo's team. As a result, this could become a problem, as PsychicMewtwo's team seems to be based heavily around Volt turning, which again requires a lot of switching. Now, this Scizor, however, might have Defog in its moveset. So one thing it could possibly do is he could send it out again in a safe matchup and use Defog to get rid of that Spikes. However, it hasn't seemed like he's done it yet, so that could be a problem. But I believe he's afraid of this Landorus. It resists Bullet Punch, so it won't likely be taken out unless it takes a few hits. So now Kyurem does use the Roost to heal back up its HP, very good move. So now what can Kyurem do? Greninja is faster than Kyurem. Greninja is probably running Scald or Surf, Dark Pulse, Ice Beam, and possibly High Jump Kick since he brought it out against Kyurem, since fighting type moves are super effective against ice types. So unless Greninja does miss, PsychicMewtwo will want to bring out a different Pokemon, most likely his Toxapex, as that won't take significant damage. But he does swap out into the Clefable, but PsychicMewtwo does not switch out into a different Pokemon, going for the Ice Beam, thinking that his opponents will switch in, which is a very good idea. So now we also know that this Kyurem is running a Life Orb set due to the fact that it's losing HP every turn. So now he decides to swap into Scizor because it can get the easy kill on the Clefable, but Heatran comes out instead, which is not it's a total terrible matchup for this for this Scizor. So he immediately decides to swap into the Toxapex. Now, while Magma Storm does not deal a lot of damage to Toxapex, it does force it to stay on the field and lose more HP over time due to Magma Storm's effect, which is very similar to something like Wrap or Fire Spin. Infestation is also another very popular choice, as Infestation is another move that does something similar, as it just basically traps the opponent, but nothing is immune to it. So the enemy enemy Pokemon will be consistently taking damage from it, unlike Magma Storm, which Pokemon with Flash Fire immune to. Oh, I spoke too soon. Magma Storm does not keep you on the field, it just does consistent damage, but that consistent damage is still a problem for this Toxapex. So as a result, PsychicMewtwo decides to switch into his Greninja, whereas Black Oblivion sets up a free substitute. Now remember, this Greninja does has U-turn, yes, but I would have preferred something like a Surf, but that's the thing. Toxapex does have Regenerator, so it healed up a good amount of the HP that it took from the initial Magma Storm. However, this Heatran is a special attacker and did use its Earth Power to take out a significant amount of Toxapex HP, which allowed it to which caused it to succumb to the new Magma Storm attack. So now PsychicMewtwo is down 2 Pokemon, whereas Black Oblivion does have all 6 of his on up. So PsychicMewtwo sends out the Kyurem this time. I do question why he didn't send out the Greninja, as it would basically force a switch from Black Oblivion. But goes for the Landorus. Kyurem uses Earth Power, and which Landorus is immune to. So as a result, Kyurem does no damage this turn. Probably should have gone for the Ice Beam. That was actually a good idea from Black Oblivion, since he probably was like, why would you send out Kyurem against me? But Kyurem usually is a wall breaker. Oh, sorry, minor disconnect. So, oh, and I believe we're back in this. Alright, sorry about that. Black Oblivion side. Minor disconnect from Black Oblivion side. So now we have Kyurem versus Landorus. Now remember, this Kyurem is packing Ice Beam and will take out this Landorus as a result. So while it did survive one attack, it did not survive the next. So now Greninja does come out for Black Oblivion. Remember, PsychicMewtwo lost his Toxapex, so he does not have a good switch in. Well, he could still switch in Mew, however, Toxapex would probably have been the safer switch in if he still had it. Sorry about that. A little water break. So now my guess is that this Greninja was probably trying to threaten with high jump kick, and remember, and as we discussed earlier, this Greninja is very likely faster than this Kyurem. So PsychicMewtwo's best bet would be to swap out into maybe Mew, because it can take a decent chunk of damage. However, it is weak to the Greninja's Dark Pulse. So that could be a potential problem coming in. So PsychicMewtwo is thinking about what his next move should be. Personally, I would choose to send in the Mew, as Greninja just has way too many options, but he decides to send in the Scizor instead. I mean, Greninja does go for the Dark Pulse, which Scizor does take neutral damage to. Now, as we can see, Greninja did not change his typing, so this is not a Protein Greninja. This could be the Ash Greninja, which I don't understand why you would have it. But this is a, so as we just said, this is a protein, not a non-protein Greninja. Scizor could use Bullet Punch here, but since Greninja is a water type, it will deal not very effective damage and would not take out this Greninja. He could go for the U-turn or the Cross Scissor as a result. My guess is that he would go for the U-turn in order to swap out into maybe Kyurem or his own Greninja to soak up some damage. I would not go for the defog here if this Scizor has it. Yeah, but instead he decides to straight up switch into his own Greninja, and it does resist the Dark Pulse, surviving with about 20% HP. Now Psychic Mewtwo's kind of in the corner because he can't just keep switching out his Pokemon. But Psychic Mewtwo decides to switch out his own, go for the low kick to deal super effective damage to Greninja, whereas Black Oblivion swapped into Heatran, but that was a bad choice since low kick does even more damage to Heatran. I guess he was assuming that he would go for the U-turn, but as we just saw, it didn't, and the low kick takes out the Heatran. So now we're at a somewhat more even playing field. However, I would say Black Oblivion does still have the advantage in this battle, as Psychic Mewtwo's team is constantly suffering from those spikes. So we know that this Greninja has Ice Beam. No, does it have Ice Beam? I don't think it has Ice Beam. It had U-turn and low kick, but it's out, it's gone, it won't be coming back. Because of the Clefable's Moonblast, which will deal super effective damage. So now Psychic Mewtwo has a free switch into the choosing Mew, Kyurem, or Scizor. I would pick Scizor at this point since it can deal super effective damage easily to Clefable. But instead he decides to go for the Mew, probably for a Thunder Wave. Probably for a Thunder Wave to disable the Mew, the Clefable, or any Pokemon Black Oblivion decides to send out. On its own, it does have a few attacking moves, but it's okay. No, it decides to go for the knockoff, and it knocks off the opponent's Greninja's choice specs. Okay, so that's why Black Oblivion did swap out, as it was using a choice specs Greninja, so it was locked onto that Dark Pulse. Which makes sense, even though... Anyway, back to the battle. Goes for the knockoff, takes out the Greninja's choice specs. Now, this Greninja, odds are, will go for the Dark Pulse to try and take out this Mew. This Mew, since it's used knockoff on the Greninja specs, it won't get that boost anymore from the choice specs, which would have more likely secured the kill, since Mew is more likely a defensive Pokemon due to how many moves it can learn and its base stat lineup. So I would say a good move here would probably be to use a status move, like again I said, Thunder Wave. I personally love Thunder Wave as a status move to cripple this Greninja and potentially prevent it from landing important attacks onto Psychic Mewtwo's team. So right now we'll just have to see what they do, because as we also know that Mew's ability is Levitate, so I don't believe it was affected by the spikes, and it wasn't, and decides to go for the Roar instead, which is an interesting choice. Does bring out the Ferrothorn instead of having Greninja, and as we just saw, even though that Dark Pulse was super effective against Mew, it did just a little over 50% of its health. So now he goes for the switching back to Greninja to get rid of the Ferrothorn. This is interesting because Oh, no, Mew got... No, okay. Greninja does get the flinch from the Dark Pulse. So Mew couldn't have roared and healed up that turn, which... At that point, he was just trying to PP stall, but that flinch was crucial for basically getting... preventing Mew from continuing. That was a very, very... damaging move, not in the damage sense, but in the strategical sense. I believe he was just trying to PP stall all the way for the rest of the game. But now, depending on the role for this, depending on the RNG role for the next Dark Pulse, this Mew probably will most likely get taken out as a result, unless it's a very low roll, and what we've been seeing earlier are at the higher end. But no, go gets the critical hit. Oh, yep, this is the famous Ash Greninja, as we said. Takes out the Mew with the critical hit, and even another critical hit. Jeez, these crits just keep on coming. At this point, I would say this is Black Oblivion's game, because all Psychic Mewtwo has left is Scizor, and there's the forfeit. Good game. Black Oblivion wins the battle. So, if there's one thing we can definitely say that kind of really turned this game, it was the, well, not turned it, but brought this game into Black Oblivion's favor, is his KO onto the Toxapex. The land power did land true, and it dealt a significant amount of damage to the Toxapex. So credit to Black Oblivion for doing that. So, plus the spikes was very helpful in just kind of chipping away at Psychic Mewtwo's team. However, I would definitely say that the knockout onto the Toxapex was basically Black Oblivion's win condition, sort of. So anyway, that does it for this session. Hope to see you guys again. Bye.